One of the most popular questions I get asked is this one right here. What kind of plant can I own that I won't kill? So if you are a plant murderer, keep watching this video. If you haven't heard about it already, the snake plant is a great plant to care for because it only needs water once a month, you guys. Most of the time, this plant can live in any lighting condition, low light to bright light, and even a little bit of sun is okay on this plant. It's a great oxygen producer, good bedroom plant, and there's a lot of varieties of snake plant. Another plant that doesn't get talked about enough is the Chinese evergreen, also known as an aglaonema. Aglaonema is a great low light and low water plant, and there's about 24 types of them, so you can collect them all. If you're looking for great plants that are easy to care for, check out my Etsy shop. The link is in my bio, and follow me on TikTok for more plant care recommendations.
So you want to learn about Sundews, or Drosera? Drosera? I don't know. You better buckle up for this one. To give you a little bit more confidence in me, I love Sundew. In fact, that's my hand tat. Drosera come in a lot of different forms. This one's called Drosera multifida variety extrema, and it's really young right now, otherwise the branching is off the charts. Drosera is a genus that contains 194 species, making it the largest of the carnivorous genera. These carnivores are found in every continent except for Antarctica, and they grow in bogs and wetlands. They're evolved to live in nutrient-poor soil that carries no salts, which means we can only water them with distilled water. And they like to stay continually wet, just like your mother. The biggest factor affecting dew production is actually light and not humidity. They need a lot of light, like a lot of light.
Hi planters, this is Izzy and welcome back to the Plants and Pilates YouTube channel. Today we'll be covering the best plants for beginners. The first plant we have for beginners is the snake plant. I love this snake plant because it has such a beautiful foliage. It's like dark green and light, kind of looks resemblance to a snake. The reason I love this plant so much and I recommend it for beginners is that it's so easy to take care of as far as lighting. This snake plant really takes any type of light. It prefers bright indirect light, great for people who live in small apartments and don't really have too many windows. So yeah. Another reason I do recommend this plant is for anyone that's really busy and you can't really water your plant or pamper it every single day. This plant can handle a drought. As long as the first 2 inches of this plant is moist, then you should be all good. The second plant we have for beginners is going to be a fern, specifically a lemon button fern. The lemon button fern is a fan favorite, especially because look at how cute it is. It's quite literally little buttons. The lemon button takes bright indirect light, but it can tolerate mid lighting. Watering this plant is extremely easy. Water it when the soil becomes completely dry and make sure to water it thoroughly. If you want any tips, you can possibly just do some bottom watering. That usually ends up working. The third plant I recommend for beginners is any type of Hoyas. Personally, I have right here is a Hoya carnosa. Similar to the lemon button fern, this Hoya takes bright indirect light or mid lighting. For watering this Hoya, you want to water it when the first top 2 inches of the soil become dry. The unique trait about this Hoya carnosa is that it can produce all white leaves, as you can see, and then also the top of the leaves are going to be a little bit waxy and then the bottom is going to be fuzzy. The fourth plant I recommend for beginners is the ZZ plant. The watering requirements for the ZZ plant is perfect again for beginners because it likes to dry out in between watering sessions. So probably I would say every 3 to 4 weeks you want to water this. The lighting requirements for the ZZ plant, another reason why I recommend it for beginners, is that it takes medium to low light. So it's perfect for anybody that has like an apartment or anything. And again, if you can't get too much light in your apartment. The unique trait about the ZZ plant is that it has such a dark green foliage, and I love the way the leaves are. They're so pointy and they're not like any other plant you want to see. One of the last plants I'm going to recommend for beginners is the philodendron. Watering requirements for this plant is when the first top 2 inches of the soil become dry, and again, you can use a bottom watering method. The lighting requirements for this philodendron is that it's going to take bright indirect light and possibly mid-light as well. The unique trait about the philodendron is
Let's grow thriving string of pearls. I've killed a few of these myself and grew this one entirely from a tiny cutting. The trick is to grow them in a shallow pot with great drainage like this bonsai pot. If you find the pearls bursting, it's overwatering. If they're shriveling, it's underwatering.
If you have houseplants, do yourself a favor and get some moisture indicators. I like these. I also love the ones from Daphne's Botanicals. I don't know the science behind it, but they are white when they're dry and colored when they're wet, and they are the easiest way to tell if your plant needs to be watered. I like to use them in plants that are in hard to reach spots, super sensitive to moisture, and to keep track of moisture in pots that don't.
Quick tips on how to water an orchid. Unlike most plants that requires regular potting soil, orchids uses bark, which has amazing water retention. 3 ice cubes are simply not enough to water orchids. Instead, you should let warm water run through the soil and let it sit for 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes is up, the bark will absorb the water it needs and release the water it doesn't. Enjoy!
I have 2 west-facing windows in my apartment and I get great light, but I still only keep my houseplants on one half of my apartment, the half that is closest to the light source. I'll show you. So here's my 2 windows, they're west-facing, and I keep all of my kind of extra thirsty for light plants in front of the windows. That's my fig tree, my large schefflera, my cactus, and then plants that are kind of struggling and need a little bit of an extra boost. For my plants that require bright and direct light, this is about as far as I will put it from the window. So this Monstera loves bright and direct light, and I wouldn't give it any less. Then on the opposite side of my apartment, I keep pothos and azizi. So this is where I keep my low light plants. This is the other half of my apartment, and you'll notice that I don't keep any plants here because it's just too low light, even for snake plants. When in doubt, give your plants more light than you think.
Here's a 15-second TikTok to let you know that the snake plant is the easiest to care for plant out there. It needs water once a month because it retains water in its leaves. It also can live in low light. If you've killed it before, you probably overwatered it, so give it another chance and follow me for more videos.
Let's go from soil to leca. First, tease the soil away and give the roots some gentle rinsing. Next, grab an outer and inner pot, fill to about 1/3 of the way, and mark your water line. Do this before potting, it makes your life easier. Put leca at the bottom, then set your plant in and work around the roots and shake to adjust. Now take your water with nutrients and pour over the leca balls over the outer pot to the water line, and there you go, transfer complete.
Hey plant whores, so you may be wondering what plants grow fast. Well, let me tell you. Pothos will grow really fast, but once you start getting into the higher, variegated ones like Enjoy and Mandula, they're gonna grow a little bit slower. Vining, Philodendron also grow fast. I would also say any type of Coleus if you like those. And Tradescanthia.
I get a lot of questions about how I get my pothos plants to grow so long, and they didn't always grow this fast, but recently I've been doing something a little bit different that has helped them grow way faster. I'm not a plant expert by any means, but this has just worked for me. Instead of just letting them hang down, I started propping them up to the ceiling with these little white hooks. Because pothos like this won't climb on their own, they need a little bit of a boost. Eventually, they'll start climbing through these little hooks that you put up. You could also use command hooks. That's a good option too. And I also just water them once a week consistently on the same day and make sure they have really good drainage. To water them, I like to take them down fully, put them in my sink and soak the soil, and then let them drain completely before putting them back.
One way you can tell a plant's ready to be repotted is if a bunch of leaves are drying out at once. This is a very small pot and it's drying out quickly, which means it needs a bigger pot soon.
Hey plant pals, you requested a Venus flytrap care video, and I'm happy to do it because I love Venus flytraps. We have a ton of them at the nursery. I have an embarrassing amount at home. They are one of my favorites, so let's talk about them. So, Venus flytraps are native to North and South Carolina in the United States, where they grow in bogs. So that's what you're kind of trying to replicate at home. Venus flytraps in general do best in full sun, outdoors, always sitting in a deep saucer of distilled, rain, or reverse osmosis water. They go dormant in winter and they die back really hard. Some of them will die back to the rhizome really fully. Others will just grow lower, smaller traps, lower rosettes, not tall petioles anymore. And then they start growing again in spring. So that's the real short way to talk about it, but let's get in depth. So when I say outdoors, I mean in most areas, what I'm talking about is temperature range. So these guys are actually really hardy. People kind of have an idea that they aren't, but they're really tough. So they can take temperatures as low as 15 or 20 degrees Fahrenheit. They can take a short freeze. If it's gonna be colder than that for an extended period of time, that's when you can't grow them outdoors in the winter. Otherwise, because they are dormant in winter and want to be exposed to colder temperatures, if you're cold like 50, 40, 30 degrees normally, that's actually perfect for them. It's when you drop into the 20s, 50, 15, 10, for extended periods of time that you have to worry. Otherwise, grow them outdoors. Now, let's talk about heat range. So they are actually quite heat tolerant. They like temperatures that are quite warm. They can take 80s, they can even take 90s, they can even take hundreds for brief periods. But if you live in an area where it's like over 90 degrees Fahrenheit the entire summer, I would actually amend my full sun requirement and suggest that you grow them in full morning sun where they get protection from the afternoon sun and make sure they never dry out. These are not really great houseplants. You can grow them indoors. Some people grow beautiful flytraps indoors, but it's a little bit more work. And here's why. That full sun requirement is actually really important. They need a lot of light. And when I say full sun, what I'm meaning is I need the sunlight to directly hit the leaves for 6 hours a day. And it's not really gonna work out in many windowsills because many windowsills don't actually get that much light. So a lot of people do better if you grow them under a nice grow light pretty close to the plant itself. You also want to, if you're gonna grow them indoors, supplemental feed them because actually outside they catch a disturbing amount of bugs. It's shocking. I did not believe that they would catch that many bugs until I grew them myself, and I was really surprised, horrified, and delighted. So if you're gonna grow them indoors, you really do wanna feed those traps. And they really do best with live prey. So I suggest live mealworms from the pet store, and you can just take some tweezers, put them in there, get the trigger hairs, and they'll close on that. The reason you need live prey is because they kind of need the squirming of the insect after the trap is closed to trigger all of the rest of the digestion. So frequently, if you feed them like a dead fly you find, they'll close, but then they'll pop open really quickly within a day. They have not digested that fly. So that's why live prey really works best, which is kind of hard and gross, but that's just how nature works. So live mealworms, a grow light close to here, and again, always distilled water, a nice deep saucer for these guys if you're gonna grow them indoors. They do require winter dormancy. You don't really wanna skip that. If you skip it, 1 year you can get by and your plant will be okay, but if you skip it more than 1 or 2 years, your plant will eventually start to look terrible and die. I see it all the time. Don't skip it. It's essential for your plant. Dormancy is triggered by being exposed to shorter photo periods and colder temperatures. So either put it outside if that's a possibility for you, do the fridge method, or put it in an unheated room or garage in a sunny windowsill for the winter, but don't let it dry out. If you want to know more about the fridge method, I did a whole video that's on our video all about temperate dormancy because it's kind of complicated. So that's Venus flytrap care. If you grow them outdoors, you don't really need to supplemental feed. They're going to catch a lot, but you can definitely give them a boost with a little diluted Maxi fertilizer, 1/4 teaspoon of Maxi in 1 gallon of water, and then just try to mist the leaves. You could do that indoors as well, once a month. My last tip is Venus flytraps really like to be repotted frequently. They don't like minerals and salts. That's why you need to always use the distilled water, reverse osmosis, or rainwater. And over time, their soils break down and just build up minerals and salts, and that really affects their growth. So if you want your Venus flytraps to look like the best possible, repot them every year or every 2 to 3 years. That'll really help them. And do that in winter when they're not actively growing, or else they're gonna shock up a little bit. So that's all my special tips about Venus flytraps. I hope that helps. If you have more questions, please comment below. And if you have any other questions about other plants, of course, you can always comment and I'll try and help you out. All right, happy growing.
Hi everyone! Here are some plant hacks that you may find interesting about your pothos, more specifically the devil's ivy. First things first, clean the leaves. These guys tend to collect dust, which can affect photosynthesis. Another tip is to let the soil dry out almost completely before watering your plant. I find that when I'm ignoring these guys, they actually do a lot better. Another tip is to provide a pole. I don't know why, but my ivies always seem happier when they have something to climb. You can use a little piece of string to secure the stem. I like to use these bamboo rods that I got from the dollar store. My next tip is to always place these guys in indirect sunlight. The leaves can burn and fall off very easily when they're in direct sun. Here's a little clip I wanted to show you guys of how dusty the leaves can get. This is why it's so important to wipe them off regularly. Alrighty, my last tip is to never be afraid to cut off dead or unwanted leaves. This will allow the plant to focus energy on growing new leaves. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If you want to see more, like for part 3.